What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. I've decided to solve the issue of not having any content to upload by starting a podcast. A podcast where I can just let my ADHD run wild and where you, the viewer, can learn to appreciate the small things in life. Without further ado, I am glad to welcome you all to the first episode of LIAMS Random Introspectives. Before we get started, just a quick disclaimer. This is a semi-serious podcast that looks way too far into random topics using factual and scientific information for the purpose of both comedy and education. As such, certain points may be over-exaggerated for comedic effect, and I highly recommend people do their own research into the topics discussed in this series. Anyways, I put out a poll the other day asking which topic I should cover first, and as of writing this, ceiling fans were the second most requested, while cable and streaming seemed to be the most requested. While that cable episode is currently in production, I decided that ceiling fans would be a nice topic that would really set the tone for this series. So let's start by identifying what a ceiling fan is. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, circulating fans, including ceiling fans, window fans, table fans, floor fans, and fans mounted to poles or walls, create a wind chill effect that makes you feel more comfortable. And according to Wikipedia, a ceiling fan is a fan mounted on the ceiling of a room or space, usually electrically powered, that uses hub-mounted rotating blades to circulate air. While at first glance your typical ceiling fan may not seem like anything more than some spinning blades, they are actually complex multifunctional appliances. No matter the size or quality, the standard ceiling fan is equipped with 3 to 5 spinning blades that can be wood, plastic, or metal, 1 to 4, but usually 3 light fixtures, 2 pull cords that power the blades and lights respectively, and a switch that dictates the blade's direction of travel. When moving counterclockwise, the blades cool the room, but when moving clockwise, the blades will warm the room. Certain high-end models of ceiling fans can also be remote operated either via a phone app or via a dedicated remote control. So now that we know what a ceiling fan is, let's figure out how we got here. Allow me to introduce to you the grandfather of the ceiling fan, the punka. The punka was invented in ancient India all the way back in 500 BC. These ancient fans used blades made out of bamboo strips or palmyra leaves. Jumping 2,300 years to the 1860s, however, we see in the United States the first semi-modern ceiling fan. These fans worked by using steam power connected to a system of belts to spin the blades. Then, in 1882, Philip Deal invented the first ever electrically powered ceiling fan. These fans contained 2 blades, each equipped with their own motor. The motors themselves were similar to those found in automatic sewing machines. In 1914, the world went to war, and ceiling fans received a major upgrade, now featuring 4 blades instead of 2. Ceiling fans were also becoming more common, now being sold by large companies like the Westinghouse Corporation. Ceiling fans continued to be mainstream throughout the Great Depression and the Second World War, but in the 1950s, disaster would finally strike. Backstepping to the year 1945, many monumental things happened. Hitler was defeated, the United Nations was founded, and unfortunately for ceiling fans, the first ever window-mounted air conditioner was invented. These machines worked by taking in warm air from the house and pushing it outside, while pushing cool air back into the house. Throughout the 1950s, these became widespread and were way more effective at cooling indoor areas than the traditional ceiling fan. Finally, once the 1960s rolled around, ceiling fans were considered things of the past. So is that it? Is this where the video ends? No. So far, I've been talking about the American market, as that is where ceiling fans were prevalent up to this point. But now that the American market was overtaken by air conditioning, it was time for ceiling fan manufacturers to break into foreign markets. The Middle Eastern and Asian markets were practically untouched by air conditioning due to the logistical challenges, and soon enough, ceiling fans became widely available in places like India and Pakistan. Look at that. Nearly a quarter of a millennium after the invention of the punka, ceiling fans have returned to their birthplace of India. Some things truly do go full circle, I guess. Anyways, now that ceiling fans were being made by Indian companies cheaper than ever before, some investors back in the States saw renewed hope for the American market. In 1973, H.W. Marquardt began importing Indian ceiling fans into the United States, initially to slow sales. But as the latter half of the 1970s brought with it a massive energy crisis, the people of America found air conditioning to be too strenuous on their electric bills, and ceiling fans sales began to once again explode. Then during the 1980s, America began to import more ceiling fans from China and Taiwan, and the rest, as they say, is history. In the modern era, ceiling fans continue to be widely used in both the American and Indian markets. Specifically in America, ceiling fans are now used in conjunction with air conditioning, whether that be in the form of window units or the more modern ventilation system. Now, our final topic for this episode will be covering how ceiling fans have affected the lives and health of their users. First off, the good news. To start, having a ceiling fan run during the night can actually improve a person's quality of sleep, as the human body needs to be cool in order to maintain a sleeping state. This cooling factor can also decrease the risk of heat stroke and dehydration. It can also provide improved air circulation, which can disperse certain pollutants in a given room. Also, the chance of an unfortunately common condition in babies known as SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome, can actually be significantly reduced because the ceiling fan may prevent overheating, which is one of the most common causes of SIDS. Finally, the increased airflow that a ceiling fan provides makes mold and mildew less likely to grow on the structure of our room, potentially saving the user money while also improving their overall health. This is all great, but do ceiling fans have any dangerous downsides? Well, the most common issue with ceiling fans is that they dry the air around them, potentially leading to discomfort, especially in a person's nasal regions. To give ceiling fans the benefit of the doubt, however, this problem can be solved if the user buys an inexpensive humidifier and places it in the room. Ceiling fans can also exacerbate the airborne transmission of viruses like the flu or COVID-19, just to name a couple, by blowing virus particles further across the room. Although, once again, this is a non-issue if everybody in the room covers their sneezes and coughs using their elbow. However, if a sick person is lying in their bedroom, assuming they are aiming to prevent transmission to other housemates, they may want to leave the ceiling fan off for a while. Finally, the much rarer but much more talked about risks from a ceiling fan comes from injuries. First off, no, a human cannot be decapitated by a standard household ceiling fan, even if it is moving at high speed. With that cleared up, the most common forms of injury from ceiling fans are minor lacerations and bruises, usually inflicted on children aged 3 or younger. But if a ceiling fan was installed improperly, it could cause injury to anyone by falling off the ceiling and striking them. In a 2-year period, 50 people went to the ER with serious ceiling fan injuries, ranging from lacerations to skull fractures. But to demonstrate how rare those cases are, that is half the amount of people who will completely die from dog attacks in the same 2-year period. By the way, I would love to do an episode of this series discussing pets, so please show support if you want to see that. Anyways, I hope you guys learned a lot today. Even the smallest of things like ceiling fans can have extraordinary stories behind them. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed. This was my first video I've ever done directly reading from a script that I wrote, so feel free to leave any suggestions. Feel free to leave any topic suggestions. Make sure to like and subscribe. And yeah, that's all for this episode of LIAMS Random Introspectives. I will see you guys next time.